everybody. Hello. I think we are live and everyone should be able to see us. And we're going to be talking in just a second. Just want to make sure everyone has a chance to catch up. There's a lot we're going to be going over in this episode. And let me bring everyone up to date here. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? This is Michael Voss, and you are listening to No Soundbites Allowed. This is our live stream. We do this on Sundays at 2:30 p.m. I just made it back from an event I was at earlier today. You can see that live stream on Facebook under the Voss Political Commentary, and I'll talk about that in a second. As such, I'm a little bit thrown because I'm a little bit off. I got a little bit behind in getting everything set up like I normally like to do. But let me just tell you a little bit about what's going on. So you can see that there was a live stream earlier today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. It's Michael Voss, and I'm here at No Sound.
Okay, so that's me just talking a little bit. And essentially, we were talking about the barbecue at the Post 80 American Legion post in Binghamton, New York. They were doing a cookout. I hope you look this up and check it out. It was a great event, and I was very happy to be able to be involved with it. I love supporting our veterans. I love supporting the American Legion and the VFWs. And you can see that we were out there live, and we've got a lot of attention for them. You know, something that a lot of people don't realize, excuse me, is that the American Legions, the VFW, they're not just there to, well, I don't even know what civilians think about the VFW or the American Legion. What I can tell you is they provide a lot of benefits. Whether you're a young veteran, you're an older veteran, whether you're a family member of veterans, or even if you just support our veterans in military, they help with PTSD and those who are having troubles reacquainting with civilian life. They are there for support of families and friends while someone is deployed or some of the difficulties in life afterwards. They just provide a lot of opportunities for people who are military or know of the military, and they're vital. And a lot of people just don't realize it. And I hope every veteran, especially younger veterans who haven't had the opportunity, drop into your local Veterans of Foreign Wars or the American Legion and just see who's there. Just have a conversation. I think you will be very happy to know about this organization and what they can do to help veterans everywhere. And I was very happy to be able to speak out about this and let people know about it because they need our help. After COVID-19 being shut down for virtually 3 months, all of our American Legions, our Veterans of Foreign Wars, they need help. They are in a difficult time. I mean, like many of our small businesses, they're closing, many of them, and they don't have the revenues. And so every little bit of support you can do, whether it's ordering out, like at the American Post Legion, where you can order food for takeout, or dropping in to just have a beer, just to have a conversation, just to see the history of our veterans across America over the centuries, I advise it. Please get in touch with them, let them know that you're interested as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. That's why, if I seem a little thrown at the moment, if I'm a little bit off, that's the reason why I'm a little bit behind, because I was at that live event and I had published that. And again, you can see that at the Voss Political Commentary site. But what I wanted to talk about today, and I'm looking forward to your comments, by the way. Remember, you can reach out on Facebook at the Voss Political Commentary. You can reach out at our phone at 607-242-1582. And you can either leave a call or a text on there for us to speak with you. You can reach out on MV Consult on Twitter. And we look for your comments. We want to hear from you, because this is about a conversation we're all having. This is a life we're all living together. And I'm very troubled by what I've been seeing with the whole defund police movement. We've been hearing a lot about this. You know, you You've been hearing about this everywhere. I mean, at one point, you've heard also, or you may have heard, about the fact that Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio, they've been in trouble with the government, with the courts, because they restricted the religious services of Americans, even though they promoted protests. And we've seen that even though protests have happened across the nation and thousands of people attended these protests, no media has reported any increase in COVID because of that. But they have claimed that going to a church, to go to a church service, a religious service, is causing an increase in COVID. That going out to a beach is causing an increase in COVID, and bars and just being social, which seems to make no sense. But then again, why should we think it would make sense? At the very same time, we have reports coming out, this one by Eyewitness News out of ABC in New York. About 18 people have been shot in 24 hours. They reported this on Saturday, June 27th at 9:30 in the evening. And they're talking about the spike in gun violence in New York City. Are you shocked? Are you amazed? Is this surprising to anyone that we're seeing this increase? 70 people were shot in the last week. And it just so happens that in the last week and a half, we saw that Mayor de Blasio, as part of caving into the Black Lives Matter, the Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, sometimes known as PLOT, the Antifa movement to defund police, 7 people were shot. They closed down an entire department of the New York City Police Department. Do you think those two things are connected? Because I guarantee you, criminals, people who wish to do harm, they pay attention to the news too. And I guarantee you, they heard that the police just shut down 400 people, 400 officers in New York City. And if you think that didn't have an impact, I don't know. By the way, Vic has been the first person to make a comment here. Hey, Vic, it's very good to see you. I always love to see it. And Vic is mentioning, you want a police-free nation. You think America is a slave nation. You think you hypocrites are afraid to show your own shadow when not mobbed up. Do you have no real cause? BLM, or Black Lives Matters, they quit killing each other in the womb on the streets, form up and end slave trading in the Middle East and Africa alive and well today. Don't destroy our country on your fake cause. Very strong statement by Vic Furman. And I think I get what you're saying, Vic. I mean, it is a known statistic. Black on black deaths in America are about 6,000 a year, about 6,500 per year. The number of unarmed men who are killed, unarmed black men in America who are killed is about 36 by police. The number of unarmed whites who get killed in America by police, I believe the number is 64. There's a big difference here. Is the problem, and let's throw out white, black. We're talking about maybe 100, 200, even 300 people. Depending on the sources, the numbers change. Let's just say that every single, and this isn't true, but even if you were to say that all 300 people were unlawfully killed by police, we've got 6,500 black on black crimes. The magnitude that we are talking about, that's 6,500 times more, 65 times more people who are being killed on black and black crime. And we have 1,000, 2,000 people who are white on white crime, and then there's Hispanic and black. There's your problem. The problem is the crime. In a culture where we can say criminals are lauded. Look at the rap industry. For decades now, being a criminal is a good thing. It's a career choice. Being a drug dealer, being a rapper talking about how you've committed crimes, that's a positive. And you can't say it isn't, because we have music videos and decades of entertainers who've been arrested, thrown in jail, and had their sales go up. There's your problem. There's the root of the problem. We're looking at it the wrong way. Can we improve the police? Absolutely, 100%. But if we're not thinking about where the problem is coming from, it's always going to exist. Oh, and Vic mentions that there's a couple of spelling errors in when he was saying, so it came off a little different. That's okay, Vic, I understand. So he brings up a great point. You know, the reason why 70 people were shot in New York City in this past week versus the 26 people that were shot in New York City last year, that increase, we took away the police, but we didn't take away the problem, the underlying cause. What was the reason why people think that they should shoot each other? Why do they think that's a good thing? Why is that something that's acceptable? There's your problem. If we address that, I guarantee you, we're going to address the real issue. We'll have those numbers decrease. Now, I know there's some people out there who disagree with me on this. As an example, this is an article from Town Hall, which was on June 28th by Kevin McCullough, who I have met and I have interviewed on the program before. And we were at an event together, Kevin and I, where we were speaking at Binghamton University, as a matter of fact, last year in 2019. And as he was mentioning, and as we have seen, Black Lives Matters has gone on national TV and been very clear. If they don't get what they want to burn down the system. They want to burn down America. This isn't something that's just made up. This is what they have said very clearly. Now, that's kind of extortion, quite honestly. And it's a problem. And it doesn't answer the underlying problem. You say you want to defund the police, you want to reduce the police. That's not going to fix the problem of crime. That's not going to resolve the 6,500 black-on-black deaths. That's not going to stop all the drug deaths from opioids and crack and heroin. There's a problem. And the problem isn't the police per se. Can they be better? Absolutely. But the problem is, why are people committing these crimes? I think I've said this many times, and you can look up my podcasts and videos on mass shootings. Mass shootings, which have been stable throughout the last 45 years, what is it that makes someone decide the only answer that they have left to them is to go out and kill innocent people? That same question applies to what we see in crime across America. Why is it that we see people who say, the only answer I have is to become a drug dealer? The only answer I have is to become a criminal. What makes someone say that's the only choice? In America, the best nation in the world, I have no doubt, I will say this directly to you, and I want to be very clear on this. I don't want any distraction on this. America is the best nation in the world. For every problem we have, we are better than everywhere else. And with all of those problems given in this great nation, where anyone, I don't care how poor you are, you today can become president of the United States. You can become a multi-billionaire if you wish to, if you work towards it. That's not a guarantee, but it can happen. And we have that opportunity here in America. We have people with iPads and Starbucks coffees, and they're out there protesting about whether or not they're able to get more or less police and taking over cities or portions of cities. And in other parts in the world, the rest of the world, people are living on less than $1 a day, having to deal with absolute actual slavery in the world today, and are being killed because it's a woman who wants to go to school, because it's someone who lives in the wrong country, because they have the wrong religion. I tell you, America, we are privileged. Everyone is privileged. I don't care what your color is. I don't care about your gender or your sex. You are privileged to be in America and have the freedom to be able to complain about these things. And the longer that we're not addressing the root problem, the worse these things are going to be. Because it's not about, are you free? You are. It's not about, do you have opportunity? You do. Can those be better? Absolutely. But we are nowhere near the demon state that certain organizations like Black Lives Matter, like Progressive Leaders Tomorrow, like the socialist democratic left would like you to believe. They'd say that because it's a political agenda. That is my opinion. You may have a different opinion. I'd love to hear the other side of that saying, no, we're not privileged as Americans. I'd like to hear the other side that says you don't have opportunity in America to become richer, more successful, have a better life. I'd love to hear that argument because I know Governor Cuomo has said, America is not great. It never was great. I disagree, Governor Cuomo. I think America is great. And I've seen the other countries. I have lived in Moscow. I have lived in Tbilisi, Georgia, and I have seen what people have lived under, especially under socialism, and I can guarantee you we're better. And if you don't believe me, believe everyone who has left those countries. The millions of people that come to America legally and illegally every year to be Americans because it's better here than it is where they are. But that's my thought on it. Now we have another comment coming in here, and hang on. Okay, this is just Vic. That's way too long. Vic made a very extremely long comment here, which I cannot read because it's just too long. But I'll start off with the first couple of lines here. Vic says, shame to know it's to be humbled for many, to reek of it and not to know it is to be ignorant. We will be hanging our heads in shame in front of our future generations when they ask, quote, why we sat by and did nothing as Marxism destroyed our nation, end quote. And then Vic goes on to make a far longer statement, and it's a bit long. Jason says that Vic should call in. And Vic, you have the opportunity to call in. The power is on, so yep, the phone's good. So you can definitely call in, Vic, because that's just way too long for me to read. Let me get to this. But I want to get back to the main thought. Police. Should we defund the police? Will it solve the problems? Is it really the biggest, most important issue that we face in America today? And the answer to those are, no, it's not the biggest issue we have in America today. And no, it won't resolve the problems. It's not the problem. It is a problem. It may be a symptom of a bigger problem, but that's not it. You know what? A lot of people will be surprised by this because I'm a Republican, a conservative Republican. But I want to point out something that a lot of people haven't noticed. I'm not the only one who believes this. Joe Biden believes this. The Democratic, and this is in Politico, you can look it up for yourself. It's out of Politico. This was published on June 8th. So this isn't new. He's been saying this for a while. But Joe Biden has said to himself that he rejects the call to defund the police. Matter of fact, he says here, quote, no, I don't support defunding the police. I support conditioning federal aid to police based on whether or not they meet certain basic standards of decency and honorableness. In fact, they are able to demonstrate they can protect the community. Hang on, guys. 1 second. Protect the community and everybody in that community. That's what Joe Biden had to say about the issue. Let me see who called in. Hello. Can you hear us now?
We got cut off.
Yeah, Vic, I know. I was trying to plug you in as I was also making a comment. So, how you doing?
Mike, how are you?
I'm doing fine. And folks, just so you to know, this is Vic Furman on the line. Vic was a former candidate for the New York 122nd District, and he's someone I've known for many years. He's a very interesting man, a former member of the military, and someone I respect. What's going on, Vic?
Mike, I want to thank you for that. You're the first one in the race for the assembly that knew and mentioned the fact that there was another veteran in the race. I want to thank you for that because apparently that's all the message that was needed to win. But
Apparently,
I'm still not. You know what I mean by that.
Yeah, I do.
I'm not dropping out of the race, Mike. The absentee balance will tell me whether or not I'm going to go as a write-in. The voting day obviously says I should drop out, but my message isn't too important just to quit. And as far as what's going on in this country today, I don't blame it on the groups of people that are protesting. I don't blame it on Plot or Black Lives Matter or Antifa. I blame it on the President of the United States, who I love dearly, for not doing anything about it. I know it has to be done at the state level, but there's got to become a time when we get the gonads to stand up to these people with martial law or whatever it takes to put it to rest. I mean, we did it in the 60s. You know, everybody talks about, well, you know, Martin Luther King was a great man and he got a lot of, well, let me finish.
Go ahead.
I'm not saying he's not. Martin Luther King's one of my heroes.
I'm not interrupting you. I was just commenting as you go. Go ahead.
He's one of my heroes. But what happened is Martin Luther King fought it from the heart. But then the Black Panthers stepped in with the guns, and that's when people started listening. When the Black Panthers armed themselves with M16s and stood on the steps of the courthouse in New York City, that's when the notice came place, and Lyndon B. Johnson got afraid of the violence that might come and started talking to Martin Luther King to quell the problem. People don't know the history that if they haven't lived through it. I remember what I saw on TV. We have to stop this back and forth about who's right and who's wrong, and just stop the violence. We have to stop the violence before anything else can be done. And sometimes it takes violence to stop violence. I hate to say that, but when you have people burning up people's lifelong dreams, when they're destroying businesses of their own kind, now, you know, blacks are destroying black businesses, not white businesses. You know, and you see this in Chicago, you see it in Seattle, you see it everywhere. You know, every Democratic state anyway. It's time for the Republican Party to stand up and say enough is enough. We got control of the White House and the military right now, and I believe that the military needs to be interjected into this to put an end to it.
Wait a minute. You said a lot there. Let me unpack a couple of thoughts here, Vic, because I do agree when we're talking about like World War II, where the violence of the Nazis, the violence of that fascist organization, and its attempt to take over the world, absolutely. We need to face that directly with the violence of a war to end it, because they weren't going to stop. Do I agree that we should have American troops policing the citizens of the nation? I don't. Because I think, and I want to make sure that's clear, because a lot of people misunderstand that, and I think that's too far.
Mike, it came out wrong, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Is if our police forces are backing down, if they're stepping aside, then we need to have the military come in, and maybe all they need to do is reinforce the police departments.
Maybe the National Guard, maybe? Maybe you mean the National Guard.
Yeah, but you have to have a governor that's willing to call out the National Guard. And so far, de Blasio and Cuomo haven't called out the National Guard. Seattle hasn't called out the National Guard. You know, and people are dying. Lives are being ruined by this. And it just isn't right.
No, it
just isn't right.
No, I agree. Go ahead.
What we need isn't to have the police come in with their tanks and their guns and start shooting people. That's not what I mean at all. They need to reinforce the police departments, and they need to go and arrest the governors of these states that are allowing this to happen, and the mayors of these big cities that are allowing this to happen. They need to be held accountable for the lives and property damage. It's as simple as that. These are crimes against the freedom of Americans. and our constitutional freedoms, no less. These are crimes against the people of this country, being perpetuated by people who are not happy with this country. And Trump said it 100 times: if you don't like it, leave. You know, there are things that can be changed, and there are things that can't be forgiven. And destroying a man's home, destroying his life and his business, and come on, they needed $2.5 million worth of Rolex watches to fight for a cause. Give me a break. You know, they go out there and they burn down buildings of their own citizens, their own race, to say that they're unhappy with the way they're being treated, and they want reparations for something that happened 175 years ago. I had nothing to do with slavery. As a matter of fact, my family fought on the side of the North. See what I'm saying, Mike? There's so much here to talk about and not enough time because I got all day. You don't.
No, I don't. But you're right. There is a lot of things there. And I can tell you that for myself, I've mentioned it before publicly. I lived in L.A. during the L.A. riots, the Rodney King, the L.A. riots, not the Watts riots, but the Rodney King riots. And I was there and I watched and I saw the aftermath of those riots, where all the places that had been burned down, the businesses that were gone, nobody was helped by this. People were homeless and they were unemployed, and no business wanted to come into those communities for a decade. It just created more poverty and more problems and more drugs and more violence than what had existed beforehand. And we see that now when we look at Minneapolis, which has been virtually destroyed. Billion-dollar businesses are leaving there. We see that in Seattle, where businesses are leaving there. People are they're just fearful for their lives. And it's gotten so bad because of all the shootings that have happened there, because they removed the police, that now the mayor of Seattle, according to The Guardian and many others, Jenny Durkin is the mayor, they're now bringing the police in and they're closing down this autonomous zone because that socialist experiment, which she herself called a summer of love, has turned out to be a summer of violence and death, and it fails. We need to keep this in perspective, folks. Getting rid of the police doesn't make it better.
Well, Mike, you just reinforced what I was saying. If we don't take control of this situation, then this situation is only going to get worse. You know, I ran not because I wanted to become an assemblyman, not because I wanted to make money. I ran because this country is headed the wrong way. And the only way we're going to change it starts from the local, state, and then national level. We need to get people who are involved in both parties. You know, people tell me, oh, you can't trust a Democrat. Well, a lot of Democrats are walking away from the party. You see this every day. People talking on the internet about, wow, I can't believe what my party represents anymore. I'm walking away. They're just not the same party I joined. And we have Pelosi, we have Schumer, we have Gillibrand, all these people, Schiff, all these people are working and they're hell-bent to destroy America and hell-bent to destroy this president because he got elected by Americans and not by the nationalists that they wanted. You know what I'm saying?
I do, and in part I want to blame the media for this. I mean, let me ask you, Vic,
God, yes.
Let me ask you, did you hear back on June 8th or until I mentioned it today on the show that Joe Biden says he's against Black Lives Matters, that he doesn't support defunding the police, that he thinks it's important that we have police? Did you ever hear that anywhere else?
I understand that question, and yeah, I understand the hypocrisy of that of Joe Biden. Joe Biden is one of the worst hypocrites.
I'm not supporting Biden. I don't support Biden. I think he's a horrible candidate. I think he's a horrible potential president. I look forward to him losing. That's separate of what I'm talking about, though. The fact that he is coming out, he is the Democratic presidential candidate. He himself is directly saying that the idea of defunding the police that is running rampant in Democratic states and trying to be accomplished here in our local community in the Southern Tier, that he's opposed to it. So even Democrats, the supposed moderate that Biden is, even he says it. And you know what? It's the media that's not putting it out there saying, oh, look at everyone saying they wanted to defund the police, not hey, even Democrats realize and acknowledge that's a bad idea.
Some do, but some aren't. Come on, if they weren't, wouldn't they be out there on the TV saying something? I've yet to see a Democrat, I've yet to see a Pelosi or an Adam Schiff or Chuck Schumer or anybody come out and say, hey, look, folks, stop this nonsense. Let's bring this country together. Instead, they get out there and say Trump's dividing it. And that's not the truth. I mean, God forbid me for saying this, but Trump should shut up once in a while. But the things he says that I think are screwing up his political life or whatever, I understand what he's saying, but he's saying it wrong. He needs to take his time and think. I have the same problem. I'll blot something out like I did a few minutes ago about the Army taking over. What I meant was the Army backing up the local police, the state police. And, it's just not happening. Yesterday, my granddaughter graduated, and my son's a police officer.
Yeah.
And the place was loaded with police officers here yesterday, Binghamton and State. And I was sitting and I was talking to one policeman from Binghamton, and he was telling me that he was an after-school coach. He still is. He still is an after-school coach. He mentors children. He pays children of lesser opportunity. I don't want to say of color, but of lesser opportunity to come mow his lawn because they come from poorer families, and he owns a few buildings. He said when he was working the Black Lives Matter protest in Binghamton a week ago or 2 weeks ago,
yeah,
that those same kids that he was mentoring on the football field and through job opportunities were calling him a pig and a racist. And this guy literally had tears in his eyes. He says, I've done nothing but be as much of a person as I could be in showing love for these kids and trying to help them get through tough times. Because many of them wake up in the morning, they see bongs on the coffee table, beer cans on the floor, and they have to step over that to go outside and play with their friends. And people don't understand this. We got to change society. I just don't know how to do it. I just know the way they're doing it isn't right. I think we need to bring God back into our schools. If we can have Muslim worship in our schools, we can have God worship in our schools. It's just not right what's going on in this country, Mike. I probably
go ahead, finish up.
I probably blowing a lot off here today, but
yeah.
I'm fed up with it. And that long letter I wrote you, I put that on the internet too.
That's okay. That's what it's there for. That's what it's there for. I want it out there. Go ahead.
It's just that we do the same thing day in and day out. People don't pay attention to politics, because if they did, I'd be the one that was claiming victory in the assembly race. If they paid attention to what was going on, we had in this race, we had 4 people in the race. All 4 of us got the information because I sent it out.
Well,
about the illegal pay raises. Everybody says quit talking about it, but they were illegal. They broke 4 out of 5 of the 7 articles in Article 7, paragraphs 1 through 7 of the New York State Constitution, and they took them. And not one on both sides of the party. The whole judiciary took those illegal raises, and that's a whole show. If you want to do an interview, I'll explain.
Well, that's. I was going to say that is we're slightly off the topic for today, and it is an important issue. I'm not.
But people. I put it out there, and it seems like nobody cares if they're lawbreakers because they, to me, they voted for the wrong person. And let me tell you about Joe Angelino.
Well, no. We're not going to talk about other candidates.
This is nice stuff. I like the man. I think he's a man of good character, and I think he served his country and his state well, or his town well. But the only thing I want to say is just because you're a veteran doesn't qualify you for a state assembly job. Just because you're a policeman doesn't qualify you for a state assembly job. What qualifies you for a state assembly job is recognizing the problems in the community, in the district, and being able to, speak to them. And we did not hear anything from Joe or on that. So that's all I want to say on that.
Well, no, I respect that, and I do understand that, but. And like you mentioned, that's an entire show all its own. And I don't
Yeah,
want
and
to, and I want to give you the time to be able to say that, and I definitely will have an episode on that. But I want to get back to, and I do also want to give some other people a chance to speak. There's a couple of
I'll
comments
let you,
here.
I'll let you go, Mike. Thanks for taking my call. Keep up the good fight, and you do good work. Keep that up too.
I'm trying. I'm trying my best there. And thank you, Vic. And we're going to talk more. We will talk more. Okay.
Take care, Mike. Take care, Mike.
All right. And folks, anyone can call in. I know a lot of people sometimes think, well, it's only there's only conservatives or Republicans that call in. Democrats can call in too. I'm not editing anybody's comments. I don't do that. I don't edit anyone who calls in. You call in, you're on. Okay. And we try and stay on. We want to give you a chance to have your voice out there too. And I think it's very important. Vic brought up a lot of issues. A lot of them we have to address. And I think one of the big ones, and I've said this over and over and over again, is that we need more people to vote. You got to go out and vote. If you believe, I'm going to take the opposite side of this that I believe in myself, but if you believe that America needs to be more socialist, if you think we need to defund the police, if you think that's going to make America better, then you need to go out and vote. I don't think you're going to see that as a result. I think that's going to destroy. I guarantee you, for everyone who is afraid of watching, their local city, like my city here in Binghamton, if you're afraid of it becoming Seattle or Portland, Oregon, and you want to stop that, well, you need to go out and vote. If you want to stop the shootings because there's no police, if you are worried about whether or not you're going to be protected, you need to go out and vote. Remember, these are the same. We're listening to these arguments where we have heard just a year ago, people were telling us, the anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment groups were saying, which also happen to be the same people, the same progressives who are telling us today about getting rid of the police. They were the people who told us that the police would protect us. And now they're telling us, well, you got to get rid of the police. I'm sorry, that's confusion. And the only way to answer that confusion is, one, to demand that our elected officials answer these questions and tell us where they stand. And we have to vote for the people we believe in and the people we don't believe in, and say, okay, we're going to vote for this one because we believe in them. We're not going to vote for that one because we don't believe in them. But you have to know where they stand. You have to understand what's actually going on. And you have to be able to say, hey, when Cuomo goes out there, and people may not be familiar with this, it just came out on the 27th. You've got Cuomo with his own emergency powers, under his own desire, saying, hey, if you work for New York State and you go to a state that happens to have a hotspot of COVID, say you're going to visit your grandmother who's sick in Florida or in Texas, and you're there to help them, and you come back from your job, you can't get sick leave. You can't go out there and get the family leave to take care of them because you went to a place that had COVID. Well, what about if you have a business? What if it's part of your job? How can he unilaterally decide you don't get to get paid for something that you needed to do just because there's COVID? What if you're taking every precaution? What if you're not exposed to anyone? Is that right? That one man, Governor Cuomo, can make that decision and impact millions of lives. And that's something that you and I didn't have a choice on. That wasn't a question that anyone got asked about. The state legislature wasn't asked about that. It's the same thing about what we see happening with the police. The people of New York City were not asked, do they want to get rid of the police department? It was just taken away from them. 400 members of the police department. It was just taken away from them. And the people of New York became less safe. And now we have 18 people shot in the last 24 hours. If I remember the math correctly, that puts it at about 48 people in the last week and a half who have been shot since they got rid of 400 officers. Would those people be safer if those police were still there? Probably. But we can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure of it. Now, I also had a comment that came in from Tina, who said that people that watch your vlog are informed and agree with you on how America is the greatest nation and all the opportunities are afforded to all Americans. And I believe that wholeheartedly, and I thank you, Tina, because I think it's absolutely true. America is the greatest nation. We have problems, guaranteed. We are trying to find solutions, guaranteed. But I tell you this, we are the greatest nation, and together we do so much better. Matter of fact, I'm going to point to something that happened in my local community in Binghamton, New York, as reported by WBNG back on the 25th. People are saying, and there are certain local politicians who are supporting the idea that Plot and Black Lives Matters has put out to defund the police. You know what one of the answers is? Well, Mayor Rich David of Binghamton committed $650,000 to community programs, including training for the police. And there's the answer instead. Instead of removing the police, instead of making the city less safe, the answer is let's train the police officers to perhaps be better. Let's increase mental health funding. Let's increase opportunities and the playgrounds for kids and give them the opportunity. That's what the answer was. The answer wasn't let's get rid of police officers and therefore make it less safe for everybody in the city because there are fewer officers to protect them. No, the answer is let's make them better. Let's improve our police. And I am a supporter of the police. I believe in this 100%. Let's improve the police. We can always improve our government. Government is inefficient. We can always make it better. But we can't make it better if we remove them and they aren't there. We're not solving the problem. We're not fixing the problem. We're hiding from the problem. And there are many politicians in this local region and across the country, like Vic was mentioning, like I've mentioned in other formats, that are hiding from the public. They're hiding from the issue. They're trying to distract from the issue, and that doesn't help anyone. That's my belief. Now, not everyone's going to agree with me on that, and that's okay. You don't have to. This is America. But you can also call in at 607-242-1582, and you can give me your comment and thought. You can send a text. You can send an email. You can leave me a message, as many people are. And by the way, Jason, I did see you there. I didn't get to say hello to you. And you're more than welcome to call in, Jason, from Binghamton. We can make this better, but I don't think the answer to making it better is having less police. I don't think that's the answer. I think we've seen what the result is with that. And it's not that it makes things better, it makes things worse. I don't think hiding from the reality of what some of these extremists want, which is to burn it all down, I don't think that helps anyone. That doesn't make our nation better. I have to say, I agree with Biden. I agree with Republicans and conservatives that say, hey, the better answer is we're going to train our police, we're going to improve our police, we're going to keep our police. Because when we don't, we wind up like Mayor Durkin in Seattle, who now has to have the police come in to save the lives of the citizens who were captured, who were basically hostages to the progressives out there, the Black Lives Matter, the Antifa, the Plot, these groups that took over the city and drove it down into chaos. And that chaos, just like I saw in LA, just like we've seen in every riot and looting event that we've seen in this nation, it doesn't help anyone. It hurts more people. It causes more death and destruction, and it makes lives worse. I mean, think of former police chief Dorn, who was killed. There have been more police officers killed in New York City. There was 4 officers sitting in a car. They were firebombed by a member of Black Lives Matters. That didn't help anyone. That didn't make police better. That didn't make the community safer. It was just violence, and it made things worse. Destroying Minneapolis did not make the city better. It didn't resolve the problems. It made it worse. We have to address that honestly and directly and say, hey, maybe the answer isn't destroying our city. Maybe the answer is, let's make it better. Let's have a conversation on how we can improve it. Because you're not hearing that in the media, and that's a bit of a shame, and that's part of the problem. I mean, yes, that's my opinion. You may think I'm wrong, but I think that's the answer. I think that's part of the case. Now, I'm more than happy to hear from any member of Plot. I know it's a secret organization. I know that nobody knows who their membership is. We do know there's a few leaders of the organization, them and Plot and Antifa. They're all secret organizations, which is a problem in my opinion. When you have a secret organization where no one knows what your agenda is and no one knows who your membership is, what are you up to? What are you really doing? But let's say, if they want to call in, please, they're more than welcome. I look forward to their comments. I want to hear their argument. Please explain to us how we don't understand. Let's understand how this, if I'm wrong, please tell me how I'm wrong. Because through all the actual data and evidence I can find, what I see is if you defunding the police is disbanding the police. And if you disband the police, whether it's 5% or 50%, and in some cases in cities across America, it's 100% that they're trying to get rid of, the answer is you see more violence, you see more chaos, and you see more lawlessness. You don't see a better community. And it doesn't matter whether you're white, black, Asian, male, female, gay, straight, transgender, one of 32 other genders that have been created. It doesn't matter. Your life is worse, not better, by trying to do what they've done. That's why in Seattle, the CHAZ, the autonomous zone, is disappearing, because it's worse for people, not better for people, because they didn't answer the problems. And the answer isn't imposing the will on others. It's working with people. That's my thought about that. Not everyone will agree. And I've had people who are jumping in and off on the show. Please, this is open. This is a conversation. You can say, Mike, I completely disagree with you. I want to hear why. And please don't tell me because you think that I'm not really black. I know there's members of Black Lives Matters, and their answer is skin folk ain't kinfolk. I remember that. I saw that. And you can't tell me I'm not black enough. That's not an answer. That's an excuse. That's an emotional distraction. It doesn't matter. I'm an American. Let's start there. So let's not distract from it. Don't tell me that you don't like President Trump. I'm not President Trump. This isn't Washington, D.C. that I'm talking from. You're not living in Washington, D.C. Well, actually, some people who are watching this are. But we're talking about America. We're talking about our homes, our communities. We're talking about our local government. Don't throw in some other excuse of somebody you don't like. Guess what? I don't like some of the local politicians. Doesn't matter. I didn't like President Obama. Doesn't matter. That's not an excuse for letting the country burn down. It's not an excuse for getting rid of the police and increasing the amount of harm to our public. This is what I believe. Maybe everyone will hate that. Maybe some people will like it. Maybe you agree or maybe you disagree. But you know what? If you don't speak up and if you don't vote, it doesn't matter. I've said this before, and I say this every election year. I want to be very clear about this because it comes up in this issue. I have a theory. Well, it's not even a theory. It's an observation. Roughly in most elections, local elections especially, on an off year, something like 3 out of 10 Americans, especially in New York State, go out and vote. In an election year, it's 5 out of 10, roughly 4.5. And guess what that means? That means at least half of America doesn't count. If you don't vote, and I know people tell me, I had an Uber driver recently. She was telling me she's driving Uber because she has to take care of her 3 kids. She doesn't know about some of the opportunities that are available to help her take care of her kids. And when I said, well, did you vote? Because it was right after the primaries here in New York on June 23rd. And her response was, she laughed. She was laughing out loud, saying, "Why would I vote? My vote doesn't matter." You know what? If your vote doesn't matter, if you don't vote, you don't matter. Your issues don't matter. If you think that we should defund the police, if you think we should keep the police, whatever change you want to make, if you don't go out and vote, you don't matter. That issue isn't on the table. We need more than 3 out of 10 people every other year, other than election year, to go out and vote. We need more than 5 out of 10 people to go out in an election year and vote, and that's on a good year. We need 7, 8, 9 out of 10 people to go vote. And if you want to see America change, you want to see America improve, vote. Pick some, understand, and not just vote because you saw an ad, not because someone looked really good in a suit, not because you heard a commercial, but because you actually know what that person stands for. Because that politician answered your question and said, "I stand for this." I mean, there are local politicians who stand for defunding the police. If you believe in that, you should vote for them. If you don't, you should absolutely not vote for that politician. And you should be able to know, where do they stand? Do they believe in that or not? Demand that of these politicians and then vote for them based on what you believe. And I guarantee you, America will change. Whoops. Good afternoon. Thank you for calling into the program. This is No Soundbites Allowed. Who am I speaking to?
Hey, Mike. This is Jason. How's it going?
Hey, Jason. Hey, folks. This is Jason. He's a frequent caller on the program, Jason from Binghamton. And just for clarity, he is not Jason Garnar, who is the county executive. This is another gentleman, just a regular citizen. How are you doing?
Good, good. I was going to say it was nice to, hear somebody else call on for a change, and good to hear from Vic there. So
I love hearing people call in, and I love hearing from Vic too. Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about the money that the city was putting up for, to make some basic changes.
$650,000.
Yeah, and then kind of the breakdown and just the way that happened. One of the questions I have for you though is that who is and what is the Change Coalition? Because
Nobody knows.
Okay.
It is, as best as I can understand at this moment, and I may be wrong on this, so I don't want to misrepresent that organization. But as I understand, the Change Coalition is a very recent group of people who are basically made up of the NAACP, Plot, Progressives, Progressives for Broome, Indivisible New York, the more left region of the Democratic Party, that have come together and created a brand new organization. So it sounds like there's more of them than there are, that is looking for progressive ideology, as best as I understand it at this moment.
Okay. And, the other point I was going to make too is that this amount of allotted money that's going in towards all this.
Yes.
Now, I mean, is this an idea or an absolute? I mean, the thing is, the mayor says he's committing to this, but yes. I mean, there hasn't been any council meetings or anything like at all on it. And so it's kind of like all of a sudden, here we are, we got something here, and I saw nothing else. I'm not sure. You know what I mean?
Well, there are some funds that are discretionary to the mayor, separate of the city council. There are some funds that have to go through city council. I'm not sure if this is one of those that has to go through city council or not. I believe this is funding under possibly CBDG funding that is available to the mayor at his discretion to reallocate. So again, I'm not clear on that, and the press releases haven't been clear on that, so I don't have an absolute answer. So I don't want to speak for the mayor. I don't want to speak for city council. I'm not sure, but that's what I believe, that this is discretionary funds that he has available under his control, but I can't guarantee that.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of get a better understanding, before I actually make comments on, the spending of the money and then maybe the breakdown. But one of the things about this that makes me uncomfortable is that, as we've just kind of just stated, is that this Change Coalition is, spontaneously created within, a week's time. And already it's having a voice in the community that's rising above the general voters and taxpayers, And it's like, to me, it's like this: we have a chain of command, and it's like this: we go and we talk to our council members, right, and we bring issues to them, and then they, because we voted for them, they go and they address, they're the voice of the community. And I feel like all of a sudden this change coalition had basically was, completely created, and then muscles its way in, and then all of a sudden the mayor is now making policy, based upon this one organization. And to me, it's extremely uncomfortable to see something of that nature happen, especially considering the racial tension, that's in our community, and the optics of this entire thing. And like I said, it's just, to me, to a degree, it almost feels like, the mayor was looking for some way to appease the mob and to say that, look, I'm willing to negotiate, sit down at the table, if you guys are willing to have a conversation. And then I'm like, well, that's fine and dandy, but bottom line though is like I was saying, is that, we have a council, we have, a different way of being heard, and then they just basically bullied their way right to the front of the line, says, hey, let's do this, and all of a sudden here he's taking out of the taxpayers' funds, nearly, half a million dollars, and just saying this is what we're going to do.
Well,
Now,
let me clarify. Let me
Sure.
clarify a couple of points. According to Spectrum News, the local division of Spectrum News, the Change Coalition was created just a few weeks ago. So whether that's the last week, 2 weeks, I don't know, but it's absolutely brand new. Who is comprised of that? None of the local news media have actually found out who is in the Change Coalition and how they got created. So that's an unknown. What we do know for sure, and something I also want to clarify here, is that the $650,000 isn't just to reform the police. It isn't just for mental health. The breakdown, as I understand it right now, is $500,000 for Columbus Park to help improve that, $100,000 towards training towards the police department, and $50,000 towards mental health. Now, does that fall right in line with what we've seen in many cities across the nation who are bowing to the desires of Black Lives Matters? Yes. But is it also something that benefits the community? Quite possibly. So you have a mix of, and would this have happened even if there wasn't a Change Coalition? Maybe. We needed improvements at Columbus Park. We needed, and our police departments can always improve. So we got to take this with a grain of salt, at least, on the timing and the nature of it. I just wanted to clarify that for you. But go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, and that's, that makes me nervous. I mean, obviously, my position, when it comes to this sort of stuff, and the virtue signaling that happens with these organizations. And obviously you never want to be, he definitely wanted to put out the fact that he wasn't dealing with plot and, some of the other progressive groups, that refuse to sit to the table, and they basically just throw out demands. But yet, I mean, to have a group organized within 2 weeks, sit down at the table and say, this is how it's done. I mean, he's giving credibility and power to an organization that we have no clue of what it is. And again, it circumnavigates the voters themselves. I mean, we don't know this Change Coalition. We don't know, their politics, or exactly, what their total ideology is. And then if it is completely, comprised of a lot of individuals that are focused on simply the Black community, I definitely am uncomfortable with that, because obviously I believe in building a strong community and not just focusing on individuals based upon the color of their skin. And then if this is what the Change, Coalition represents, it's something that personally, as a taxpayer and a person who really loves this community, I don't want this group to divide us, as the other, groups have done. I'm not sure, whether you see it being the same problem as I do, but
Partially.
From my perspective.
Partially I do, because I know one of the organizations that is either connected to this or part of it, it's, again, unclear, is the NAACP. How much of this is completely reliant on the color of skin of the people they're trying to target? I don't know. When we're talking about funding for training for police officers, that's the entire community. When we talk about funding for Columbus Park, that's the entire community. Mental health training, that's the entire community. So while they may have that change coalition, maybe an organization targeting or specifically advocating for black issues or people of color issues, that doesn't mean that they're the only ones who benefit from that, at least from the way that the mayor has been apparently targeting it. I haven't had a chance to speak to Mayor David about this specifically. I would love to, and hopefully I can get him on the record as well on the show, and I'd be happy to ask him about that or some of the other council members, but no one has approached me yet on that from the governmental side, whether Democrat, Republican, or otherwise. It's a question we need to know more about. I don't like secret organizations or brand new organizations that have an unknown membership, that have an unknown agenda, that have that are gaining power quickly. That disturbs me, whether it's in the Visible New York plot, Antifa, BLM, or the Change Coalition. So it's a good question. You really have a good question there.
Yeah, and I want your opinion too. I don't know if you read this, but Rich David did sign into the Obama's mayor's pledge. I'm not sure. Yeah, what's your opinion on that?
Some people want to take it politically, in the sense that, he's bowing to this group or that group. I don't. I think it's someone who's look at the unrest, look at the tension that's out there. It's a pledge that doesn't, or at least in my glancing over it, I haven't read it in detail.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily place one group over another group. It's meant to help a community. Now, do I trust President Obama? No. He was one of the first people to legitimize Black Lives Matters as they were advocating for police being shot across the country. I don't agree with former President Obama on a lot of issues, and that one in particular. Do I think, though, can any president or former president suggest a plan or a program that can benefit an entire community and have people of all parties agree with it? Yes. The real fruit and the real question is, what the proof of the pudding is tasting it, essentially. We got to actually find out what it is.
Right.
What is going to be. So far, the programs that have been announced by Mayor David, I think they're decent ideas. I think that if Seattle was going in that direction, we wouldn't see the CHAZ, we wouldn't see the violence and the deaths and the destruction over there, and I'm glad. Is this a better approach than seeing, Black Lives Matter try and take over a part of the city? Absolutely. Is it the perfect answer? Maybe not, but I need more details. But so far, it seems to make sense. And I do want to also throw in something here, Jason. Give me one more second. Sure. Tina had mentioned, invite Jamar Johnson onto your show and ask him questions about it. He's a local business owner. Well, let me be very clear. Jamar Johnson, you are more than welcome to come on to this program. I will even do a special episode just to speak with you to understand about the Change Coalition and what your goals are. You are more than welcome. You can call in now. You can call in at any time. Reach out to me, and I will be happy to have you on the program exclusively in an interview or as part of the program and find out more about your organization. And I will give you as much time as you want. The offer is out there. But go on. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I was going to ask your opinion on a couple other things and then just, kind of state. Well, I mean, I kind of just read the quick statement of what they wanted to do for the Bennington Police Department. Mm-hmm. And again, one of my problems, again, is the wording itself. It's a very progressive wording of what the change wants to be done. And I think that, too, is that there's already a massive overlap in what is already being done by the department. For example, like, there's going to be this additional money supposed to go for like use of force. And this is obviously a problem of mine, is just the fact that if you're spending money on something that you're trying to do, that means that you're trying to fix an actual problem. If there's not a problem, then you don't want to put money to it. And if you're basically saying you're going to make a change, then you're just virtue signaling. But the other problem is that you are actually saying too, though, is that this entire time our police department wasn't up to a standard that needed to be there, to a certain degree. But one of the things I wanted to ask you specifically is that the statement on training for implicit bias. Now, I'm just kind of curious of what your perspective is, and maybe what your definition of implicit bias, and how sort of implementation of training would ever be implemented, and how would that even work? Because I know it's like a catchphrase word, bias, and the left definitely pushes on that, but what's your thought on that?
Okay, hang on. I'm just making sure that I'm not missing your notes here. So I do take notes as we go, folks. So let me answer a question. And also Tina mentions if he's not watching, he won't hear the invite. Contact him directly. That would be a very good segment. I do plan to try and reach out to him. And if anyone is familiar with Jamar Johnson, please forward the message, and I'll try and reach him as well. But to answer your question, so the first thing is, I don't believe that improving the police means that the police were not up to a standard. I know many of the officers, I've spoken to many of them, both as in this capacity, allowed political commentary, and as well as a regular homeowner citizen of Binghamton and the Southern Tier. I don't believe our police are below a standard. We're not Chicago. And I don't think that we were even close. But I do believe that we can always improve. And I think those are things that we see at every level of government. We can always improve. Government, by its existence, is inefficient. It always is. Citizens are always better than the government at everything. So to say that the government, to say that the police department has areas that it can improve in doesn't mean that they're bad or that they have failed in a certain area. It means that they can always improve, and now we're giving them the money and the training to be able to make that improvement. That's the way I see it. Now, not everyone will, but that's the way I generally see it based on my interactions with the police, both as a citizen and also as a member of the press, and as someone who's very much tied into the political heartbeat of the area. To answer your question about implicit bias, I don't believe in implicit bias. I don't believe in, that's basically how you get people to say, I apologize for being born white. It's the same idea. It's the same logic. It's racism. You're implicitly biased because you were born and you have this thing against people who are this color, that culture, whatever it may be. These are learned things. Not everyone has it. And I don't believe, and there is bias in the world, given. You ask someone in Japan about someone in China, they're going to tell you there's a bias there. It exists between nations. We compete. We have cultures that are different. There is going to be some differences, but that doesn't mean we dislike or that we try to destroy or we somehow think of as secondary these other cultures, not in America. So I don't agree with implicit bias. I don't implicitly believe that I am better than someone who is white, black, Asian, whatever. At the same time, I don't believe I'm inferior to someone who's white, black, Asian, whatever. That's not true. And to say that, well, that's absolutely true and that I absolutely believe that, you're now placing a prejudice that someone else has on me, and I don't accept that. It's one of the reasons why I don't accept things like affirmative action or the Equal Rights Amendment. You're implicitly, by definition, saying someone is not capable of doing things, and therefore the government or some other organization has to do it for them and force people to do it. I don't agree with that. You know what? I'm an educated, well-spoken black male who's Hispanic as well, who grew up poor in the Bronx, and I've traveled the world and I've done all the things I've done, not because someone said, let me give you this because people are really mean to you implicitly. Instead, it's because I earned it. And I think if we change our viewpoint on this towards earning respect, earning the things we get, and having an equality of that opportunity to achieve those things, we will change the culture completely. Rather than saying, I'm owed this. I mean, there are people out there who are saying, well, we're owed reparations. No, we're not. We're owed health care. It's a right. It's an absolute guarantee. No, it's not. I'm guaranteed happiness. No, you're not. Or the other thing that I know Plot and BLM love to say, that their life has to be equitable. No, it doesn't. Some people are going to have good lives. Some people are going to have bad lives. In part, it's going to be what you put into it. In part, it's just the luck of nature. But what we all deserve is an opportunity, an equal opportunity, and an equal respect based on our actions. And if we can get that, things improve. And the closer we get to that, the more things improve. I mean, does that make sense?
You know what? I really, totally. One of the things I got to say that I really appreciate the fact is that I think that conservatives really do have to really define words like this because they have a lot of weight. Because what you just said about implicit bias means a lot because it looked like to me now when I think into it, this is really about intersectionality and they're injecting and that being injected into this. Yeah. This funding, because I mean here they have that statement and they say training for implicit bias, and basically you're saying, from what it's simply nothing. And so what you're doing is just that in some essence it's almost like now you would actually be training police officers to be racist. Yes. By actually embracing implicit bias.
Absolutely.
Or identifying them or forgive them, so you know what I'm saying?
By definition, it has to. It has to. Yeah. It's like equal rights or any of these statements. You're imposing that. You're saying someone is inferior, that someone has this problem. You're imposing that on them so that you can correct it, even if it doesn't exist. And that's a problem. Rather than imposing that on someone and saying, well, you must be biased because of birth, because of existence, you must be inferior. And at the same time, someone else has to be inferior by birth, by existence, for that principle to work. I don't agree with that. How dare you? Don't dare tell me I am by birth somehow inferior or implicitly biased or receiving bias. That has to do with me and my life. That's how I'm living. And to say that, well, no, you just don't understand. Well, now you're telling me I'm an idiot. I'm sorry, I reject that as well. The better answer is you're a man or even a person, if you want to go that way, and you've done X with your life. You approach people in this manner. You deserve these things because of that. It's a much simpler, much easier thing rather than walking around and going, let's see, today you are biased about this. You hate people who cross the street when there's a yellow light. You hate people because they wear blue. You hate people because they have short hair. It's the same argument. And if someone said you're implicitly biased against people because they have short hair or wear the color blue, you would tell them you're an idiot. Why is this different?
Yeah, it looks like right there, though, is that that term alone is pretty much almost to disarm the police officers from actually taking action against somebody, that is of a different, race, gender, or sexual orientation, just out of the fear, of thinking that somehow that they have to, because that they are, implicitly biased and not to take action against it or something. You see, that's the thing, is just that you have a law, you enforce it. Doesn't matter, who does it or what happens to it. The law is the law, you follow it, and then you follow procedure. And somehow, again, they threw this in here to make police, doubt themselves, I suppose. The other question I have too, there was other term here. It was about cultural competency, or I think cultural. oh, good Lord, it was a cultural competency or something of that nature. Or was the
I'm
other
not
term, I
familiar.
think?
I'm not familiar with that term.
Yeah, I just, again, I think it was another thing about maybe further broadening their horizon on other cultures, and how to possibly deal with them differently.
Why?
I'm not really sure how you would actually train something to that,
You can't.
considering, yeah.
You can't. I
So,
mean, how many cultures are in the world right now? I can think of
all right,
136 right off the top of my
okay,
head. So what? I'm supposed to be educated. So to be in government and or the police department or a fireman or emergency medical services EMS, what I have to know 136 at least cultures that I can think of, without even counting the subdivisions of different cultures. That's just based on the number of nations in the world. Then you have all the cultures within those nations. So let's double that number. You're talking almost 250 different cultures, and it gets even more subdivided than that. How is anyone supposed to know that? You can't. How about this? I treat you with respect as a human being. Stop. I don't need to know your culture. I don't need to know Swahili to be able to converse with you because you're a black American and you're in trouble or you're breaking the law or you need help. Why do I need to know Swahili? Why do I need to know what's going on in Ghana? I'm sorry, I don't. Actually, I'm not sorry, I don't. I don't need you to apologize for being Asian or being white or being black, because if any one person has to apologize, everyone has to apologize because someone is going to be offended. And I don't need to do that to say, hey, you're a human being, period. Full stop. There's a great quote by Morgan Freeman who said, how do we fix the race issue in America? And the quote is, how about this? We start by saying, I'm going to stop calling you a white man and you stop calling me a black man. And how about we start there? You know, it makes a lot of sense. Rather than saying, oh my God, police are against this race, that race, these people. How about, gee, maybe police officers need a little more training. Let's get them that training so they can better execute the laws that are out there, and our communities will be better. I'm good with that, because guess what? Whether you're in a white community, a black community, rich, poor, Asian, Hispanic, whatever it may be, you're going to get better service. That's what they're there for, and the laws will be executed better. We're done. I don't need to know whether or not you think, like some progressives right now, transgenderism, that you think that you're a cat or a toaster or one of 32 genders, or that you want to be called Z, they, whatever, wherever it is. It doesn't matter. As long as I'm treating you as a human being with respect and I'm doing my job and I'm executing those laws properly because I've been trained well, I don't need to know that. And no one else does either. I mean, does that make sense?
yeah, and you really, I mean, we just walked through this, and you helped perfectly define exactly, the funding that was actually, tied in there. And basically, it looks like the Change Coalition came up with these key words to impose their intersectionality views into it. So they basically could put, police in a position where they just can't win, because what you just said, implicit bias and this cultural competency, are two things that are basically just, fancy words that the left uses to basically make people seem like they're racist.
Yeah,
And
overcomplicates it.
yeah. So the other part of the funding is the use of force. And again, does our police department have a problem with use of force? Do we need more funding in that area? And I would question that, because the thing is here we're talking about, we can always make government better and more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first thing we could do, we could ask if we actually have a redundancy in funding going towards something, just because we have obviously this entire thing, this amount of allotted money apparently was just an emotional thing that was put out there just to silence the beast, so there isn't some sort of rioting or something else that possibly is going on. But one thing I was going to say about the use of force that I thought would be really interesting is, honestly, I think if they were going to have funding for this, I think the first thing they should do is they should take the council, the people on the Bennington Council, considering they're the ones who are actually implementing a lot of these laws and legislation within the city of Bennington, and they are the ones who are technically guiding our police department. I think they should all go through a use of force training themselves, so they actually know what it's like to actually be in that situation, and what a police officer's
they're not going to do that.
Their mind to do it.
They're not going to do that. I guarantee you, and to my knowledge, Angela Riley, who is in our local area, for people who don't know, she's one of the city council women. She's a supporter of Plot, and she has, to my knowledge, has never been on a ride along with police. I have. Many people have. She has not, to my knowledge. Viva Friedman, who is a supporter of Plot, and I believe she has admitted on WMBF that she is a member of Plot to some degree or another. She, and that's Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, she has not, to my knowledge, ever been on a ride along. I don't think most of the Democratic or progressive members of City Council right now have ever done this. I know that several of the members of the Republican Party have, not all of them that I'm aware of, but they won't do that, because if they do that, well, that means they are compliant with police. They are somehow abetting the police, and therefore they're, in their view, based on their political ideology, that is helping to to promote the police. Well, guess what? We should promote the police. It's the same groups that they're representing. They're telling black people in the community, don't become a police officer. How are you supposed to get change, and you want to have more cultural awareness? How about you get more police officers that are black, Hispanic in the police force? There's your cultural awareness right there. They're part of the community. They live in the community, rather than telling them don't be part of the police and that police are evil and bad people. You know what? I know a lot of police officers. Some are good, some are bad. Some are really great at their job, some are really bad at their job, and it has nothing to do with their race. It has to do with them being people, because they're human beings. And they're under incredible stress, and they have incredible expectations put upon them. So, yeah, I do support the police. I have gone out and ride-alongs. I do understand and appreciate, to an extent, what they go through, and I have conversations with them about that, and we should, rather than trying to demonize them. You know, it's a very different way of looking at it. And I think we need to have that. So, yeah, I think we should have them do that. I think they should go through that training. I think they should be around the police. But I can tell you that if you asked our city council members who support Plot to do that, they will turn around and tell you, no, they absolutely would not, because the police are evil. And that's why they're ignorant. And I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm saying they're ignorant of the issue that they're talking about, because they don't know. And that's the problem. We're having these people virtue signal and try and pass laws about things they don't know. And I've seen government do this before. I used to be a stockbroker. I watched all these laws back in 2000, about even in the 90s, where they were passing laws, Enron and such, trying to fix a problem, except the lawmakers had no idea what they were talking about, and that's why we wound up with the tech bubble, because they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't understand. They didn't actually have a conversation with anyone who were actual stockbrokers, who actually dealt with the industry and saw the abuse that's going on. No, they were passing laws to make it sound like they were doing something. That goes back to another pet peeve of mine, where people say, do something. No, I don't want elected officials or even candidates or anyone involved in politics to just do something. Excuse me. If you just do something, you may well be doing something stupid. I want you to do the right thing. There's a difference. Let's not tell people, do something. Government must do something. I don't want government to just do something. I want them to do the right thing, or at least as close to it as they can, which means they have to think about it. They have to understand it. They have to understand what's going to be the consequences of it. And we need to demand that of every candidate and every elected official, regardless of party, regardless of color or gender. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And, you just made me think. I'm like, okay, so it's just like it needs to be demanded, that the council and, not only that, but I think people in the community understanding use of force would help. But like, okay, so they got a change coalition goes and makes this demand and puts this line item in there for what, $50,000 or $100,000 on things that, well, like I already said, two of them are racist ideas. So they can never be implemented, and then you got the use of force there. I mean, really, what we need is a counter coalition. Like I would say, we just, I don't know, name it like the super duper change coalition, and basically come to the mayor and sit down and say, this is our demands. This is what we want.
See,
I mean,
again, I think it's overcomplicated. Let me interject just a quick statement here, Jason. We don't need coalitions.
No.
We need people voting.
Yeah.
And you've heard me say it on this program. You've heard me say it on many programs. I'm not telling people to vote Republican or Democrat or Independent or Libertarian. I don't care. I want people to vote. And I want people to be educated about what they're voting for. Take some time, find out about the candidates, find out where they stand, make sure those candidates demand that they tell you where they stand on issues that are important to you. And based on whether you agree or disagree with that idea, you go out and you vote. And if we get 7, 8, 9 people out of 10 actually voting, especially in an off year, I guarantee we will have an improvement in our government. But if people are apathetic, we will have more and more incidents where we're defunding the police off of this idea that that's somehow going to mistakenly improve things when it actually is hurting us more than anything else. We need people to be involved and educated and say, here's my question, give me an answer, whether I like it or not, and then let me vote based on what's the best thing based on that. We don't need a coalition. We just need people voting. You're
right. Because the power is supposed to be the council, that you voted into office, and those individuals help, you, and obviously the mayor himself, which, as a conservative, Republican, like I said, just when he's able to sign off on something that says, implicit bias and, cultural competency, that actually really worries me. And I hope that, that is addressed, and brought to his attention, because that's a very progressive viewpoint.
Well, I tell people a lot, and people don't always believe it, but it's true. There are a lot of the local politicians. There are actually politicians down in Washington, D.C., and not all of them are Republicans. There's Democrats in there and libertarians and conservatives, pretty much everybody. There are people down in D.C. and across the country that are watching this program, and they listen a lot, and they're paying attention. And I know several of them because they occasionally contact me directly. So I hear that. And by the way, Dan M., I do see you. I apologize, I didn't mention it before. I see your comment there. I have Dan M. from Nampa, Idaho. I hope I pronounced that right. Who is watching into the program. He has a city of 81,557 people, according to 2010 census. Yeah, I pay attention. I look at these things. And I'd ask you, Dan, are these issues we're talking about, which right now is Southern Tier, Northeast America, Southern Tier, New York, Northeast America, are these things that you're seeing in your area as well? Are these questions and issues that people are having in your city? I'd love to know that, because I would probably bet money they are, at least to some extent. They are the same things we're all talking about, and I think the solution is the same everywhere. People being involved, being aware, voting on the issues and getting the right people in, and not being torn up by these emotional distractions that people are using to advance their political agenda. So, but at the same time, Jason, let me ask, I know we've been on for a little while. I want to give some other people a chance to either text or call in. Let me ask you, what else? Was there anything else you were wondering about? Because I know we're going to be talking more.
Yeah, no, that was pretty much it. Like I said, I mean, I right in on issues, obviously, they happen, nationally, but they, specifically right on our area. And this is a major thing. And like I've been saying the whole time, I'm like, look, it's not for us, to present anything when it comes to, change of policy for our law enforcement is really up to these individuals on the left. And what you just demonstrated when I asked you these questions, you demonstrated the individuals in this like change coalition, what they actually even got the mayor to sign on to. I mean, 50% of it was just crap. I mean, you just don't, I mean, you got implicit bias and then some cultural, competencies sort of training. And it's just like, if you, that's what they stand for. I mean, honestly, they should be, I mean, this is the problem is we don't have a media or individuals who are actually going to, ask questions like I did to actually define this and to actually say, how the hell do you actually implement this,
Oh, I understand. And I think it's absolutely, and I do know members of the media, and I do think that all of them, and I would say to all of them, just as I have to Jamar Johnson, let's have the Change Coalition get on the news media. I don't care if it's on this show or any show, and explain to us, who are they? What do they represent? What do they want? And who makes up these groups? It just appeared out the last 2 weeks. Okay, in the last 2 weeks, who came together and why? And for us to even evaluate them or judge them or even properly respect them, I can't truly say I respect or I agree or disagree with the organization. I don't know. They literally just appeared. That leaves me with questions. And it should.
Agree.
And it should.
Yeah, I mean, I do really feel, though, that the mayor did, our community a disfavor to actually, kind of all of a sudden, embrace this group without actually, with any sort of knowledge, and just doing this. I mean, I know there's a lot of emotion, a lot of things, and then they're demanding change instantaneously, and the fear of, them maybe possibly burning something down or destroying something, and it almost felt like an appeasement of a mob, to prevent some massive dramatic incident. And as we know, is that if you're dealing with individuals who are terrorists, which people who want to burn things down to get their way, like Black Lives Matter said, you give in to them, guess what's going to happen? They're just going to keep piling it on. And then if this change coalition, sees that they can get their way, and we find out that they are, well, you already pretty much defined it in their statements. I mean, they are social, they believe in, the social intersectionality politics, and that's going to be a problem. That's definitely going to be a problem.
Well, I think it is, and I also, like many of the politicians in the area, and I want to be fair, I know many of the politicians, and I do know Mayor Rich David, and I would say that in my understanding of him, he wouldn't make a change or make an agreement that wasn't in the interest of the community. So he may know this organization far better, and obviously if they've met with him, they've had an opportunity to speak with him, he knows about them. Supposedly this is a group made up of faith leaders, business leaders, representative of the NAACP, and some other nonprofits. I wonder who all of those are, because I wasn't asked to be part of this group, and I'm a black leader in their community. I'm an activist, according to many people. I'm a business leader. No one asked me. So I'd love to know. But that being said, again, Mayor David, in my understanding of him and the way he's acted throughout his 2 terms now, he's been a very thoughtful person. Doesn't mean he always gets it right, but he's been a thoughtful person, and he tends not to make snap judgments just for the politics of it. He thinks it through. So I'm willing to give him and the organization a little bit of leeway here, but I think we need a lot more disclosure. We need a lot more clarification.
I agree with you. And I say we just, say, you know what, we'll give it a week. We'll find out what, this is about. And then, I guess we'll have another discussion on this next Sunday to see exactly, what all this is about.
Yeah, we're a little bit over on time today, but I think it's worth it. And yeah, we will be talking about it again. That's why I'm here, folks. I'm not paid by, and I just want to address this real quick, I'm not paid by any organization. I am not, while I am a Republican, I'm not paid by the Republican Party. They don't speak with me about this. I have as many opportunities, and I reach out to the Democrats and the Libertarians as much as I do the Republicans to try and get some of the information I get. So, and most of my information, believe it or not, actually comes from just random citizens. I know sometimes people wonder about that. I want to be clear. And every year I lose money doing this, but I do it because I think it's important. And I appreciate when I get calls like from you, Jason, or from Vic, comments from Tina, Dan M. in Idaho. I love this. And I do know that people, believe it or not, I think there's 100 countries around the world that watch this program at some point, either live or taped. And I really appreciate each and every one of you for that. With that said, Jason, let me let you go. Let me check.
Yep.
I'll try and get at least one more person on if I can, and then I'll go. I know one of my cameras is going to die, but we're going to keep going for a little bit. Okay?
Sounds good. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Jason. All right, folks. So we've been covering a lot of ground. We've been talking about a lot of local things, but I also believe that this is talking about the nation as well. Because as much as it sounds local, we're seeing this happen across the country. I think in Idaho, they'd probably say the same thing or similar things that we're saying here in upstate New York that you may hear in Texas or the Southwest of America. At the end of the day, it's not about defunding the police. At the end of the day, it's not about demands of a political organization. At the end of the day, it's about each and every one of us respecting ourselves and everyone else around us as just human beings, as Americans, and stop there. And if we can get that, and if we could impose that thought on our elected leaders and the candidates and make sure that that's their guiding premise, that they have to respond to us, they have to respect us, and they have to treat us, each and every one of us, as human beings and Americans first, foremost, and only, we will see an improvement. And to get that, we need to be active and involved. And I'm not telling you what to be active or involved in. That's up to you. Pick the issues you believe in, pick the people you believe in, and follow it up. But what I am saying is we need to be aware. So that when people try to use the emotion of saying, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a homophobe, when they start saying that to shut down voices and to distract, we don't fall for that emotional trap. And instead we say, you're wrong. Not only am I not that, the idea you're telling me, the way to prove that I'm not a racist is to go with your idea. No, that's intimidation. That's submission. If you can't tell me why it's better to have no police, to defund the police, to disband the police, sticking with the issue that we started today with, if you can't give me a reason why that's better and tell me that I'm a racist or sexist or homophobe because I'm not agreeing, I'm sorry. You're not doing your argument any justice in saying that, and you're not convincing me. Because I can point to, just as I have, the 28 people shot in New York City in the last 24 hours, the 48 people who've been shot in New York City over the last week and a half, the 100 people who were shot in Chicago over Father's Day weekend, the people who were shot, 3 or 4 people who've been shot in the autonomous zone in Seattle. And I can tell you, you're wrong. Unequivocally wrong. We're looking at this from the wrong way, and we need to address this in a better way. At least that's the way I see it. And maybe I don't have it perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect. But I am trying to get to a better solution. Let's try and work through this. And let's not let these distractions take us away. Because we should never be afraid of someone using a term like you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a homophobe, you're a transphobe, or whatever the ism or ist is, to try and silence you, to try and embarrass you, to try and ostracize you. Anyone who is doing that, they are, I would like to say, almost always unequivocally wrong, because they're using an emotion to try and manipulate you rather than trying to let you understand why their thought has any value. You don't need a riot to try and tell me that people are equal. Whoops, lost one of my cameras. Hang on, folks. Nope, wrong one. Nope, that's not it either. Oh, there we go. All right. So we're just about done here. I lost one of my cameras there. You don't need to call someone an ist or an ism for them to agree with a good idea. And calling someone an ist and ism isn't going to change someone's mind. There's a better way. We have a better approach to these things. We really need to take it. One of my cameras died, obviously, and so that means we've been on for, oh wow, an hour and 40 minutes. And my voice is probably going a little bit at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to sit back. We're going to end the program. Unless someone wants to call me in the next minute, and you're welcome to do so, I'm going to give it about another minute, and then we're going to end the show here. Hopefully, the conversation has been beneficial. Some people will hate it. Some people will love it. Maybe I didn't answer enough, or maybe I answered too much. I am gregarious, after all. But hopefully, it's a conversation that everyone got to take something away from. Whether it was in agreement or disagreement, whether I confirmed what you always thought or what you never thought about. Hopefully, it gave everybody something. Because that's what we're here for. And I look forward, by the way, don't think now that the live stream is done, you can still contact us, whether it's on YouTube or on Facebook. On YouTube, it's the No Soundbites Allowed. You can comment at Voss Political Commentary on Facebook. You can reach out and leave text messages at 607-242-1582. You can reach out on Twitter at MV Consult. You are always welcome to leave your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree. And again, the only thing I ask, don't be rude, and don't tell me something like, you're not black. I'm sorry. That is just ridiculous. But everything else, it's on the table. Go ahead and give it to us. And don't forget to subscribe. But with that, I hope it's been a good episode, folks. I'm looking forward to speaking to you next Sunday, 2:30, live, hopefully on much happier thoughts and a much better country. That's what I'm looking forward to. I hope you're looking forward to it as well, and I hope you're going to have a great week between now and then. I'll talk to you all again very soon.